How's it going, guys? Randall aka She's a Cats here on the Tressa's Collectibles channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at the newly released Spy Family set with our latest deck profile. This set's already been out for a while in JP, and it's well established that the best way to play the set is with the Fiona level 1 combo, and the deck we'll be showing you guys today will be centered around this package. Let's hop right in. Starting with Nightfall Fiona, she sits at 3000 base power, but gets an additional 3000 during your turn, bringing her up to 7k after playing a Climax. She has about average offense for level 1 combos, but she'll get the job done in most cases. Her Climax combo with Pants lets you look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 1 Burlent character from among them, show it to your opponent and add it to hand, and then put the remaining cards on top of your deck in any order. The ability to manipulate your incoming triggers is always nice to make sure you aren't triggering Climaxes, and if you attack with a Fiora combo as your last attack of the turn, you can even manipulate the top card of your deck going into your opponent's next turn. Usually you'll want to try to rig that top card to be a Climax, so you can guarantee 1 cancel on your opponent's next round of attacks. At the start of the Encore step, Nightfall Fiona can change into her undercover form, Hospital Staff Fiona, from either the waiting room or her marker, at which point she becomes a marker herself. Since both Nightfall Fiona and Hospital Staff Fiona can change to and from their markers, this means that you do not have to worry about a deck refresh messing up your ability to change like it would in other sets. Hospital Staff Fiona is a powerful defensive card. She has only 500 printed power, but gains additional power depending on whose turn it is, plus 4000 on your turn, and plus 6000 on the opponent's. Most of the time you will have this card on the board during your opponent's turn after changing into it from Nightfall Fiona, so we're working with 6500 power on defense. She also has an ability that activates at the end of the battle opponent's attack, which lets you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and rearrange them in the order of your choosing. This is an extremely powerful defensive ability, allowing you to guarantee cancels by putting Climaxes on top of your deck. If used on your opponent's last attack of the turn, you can use this ability to see what you have in your upcoming 3 draws. From there, you can decide whether to clock, brainstorm, or even just do nothing and trigger clean. There are many different possibilities and situations when it comes to using this knowledge. One important point about this effect is that it activates at the end of the battle opponent's attack. This means that if the opponent side attacks Fiona, you will not get to use this ability since the 2 characters are not battling. This also means that it will not activate if Fiona or her battle opponent are no longer on stage at the end of the attack. This can be because of a removal effect such as a stock bomb, or the attacker removing itself through an ability, such as UA level 1 combo from Ari Fureta, returning herself to the owner's hand. As mentioned earlier, Hospital Staff Fiona also has the ability to change back into Nightfall Fiona at the start of the opponent's Encore step, letting you go for another round of combo should you get the Climax back into your hand. The piece that brings this entire puzzle together is the Anya Brainstorm, one of the most important cards in the entire Spy Family set. Apart from her Rest Self-Salvage Brainstorm effect, she has an ability that specifically works with characters that have change. When your character is placed on stage via a change effect, that character gains 1000 bonus power until the end of the next turn. With 1 copy of Anya, this would allow Hospital Staff Fiona to have 7500 power on defense, which is already quite impressive, but with 2 Anyas, Fiona would have 8500 power instead, which can be a huge problem for a lot of decks to deal with. Any Fionas that survive the opponent's turn can then change back into Nightfall Fiona, which will also benefit from Anya's boost, going up to 7000 with a single Anya and 8000 with 2. Of course, Anya Brainstorm is also powerful when combined with level 3 changers, such as the Anya or Lloyd Climax combos, but the ability to use her with the Fiona level 1 combo is extremely strong and is one of the strategies that defines Spy Family as a whole. Speaking of the Anya Climax combo, this is our late game combo of choice for our deck profile. Lloyd is also a very viable option, but we'll revisit him later on in the video. Anya has no on-play ability, but she has a Climax combo ability that's extremely powerful for its cost. On attack, by paying 1 and discarding 1, you look at up to 3 cards from the top of the opponent's deck, choose any cards from among them and send them to waiting room, put the rest back on top of the opponent's deck, and then you get to heal 1 on top. This ability lets you eliminate any upcoming Climaxes to make it easier to land damage, while simultaneously healing off a bit of damage at the same time. Similar to Fiona, Anya is also able to change at the start of the Encore step. Her change target lets you look at up to X cards from the top of your deck, add up to 1 of the cards to your hand, and send the rest to waiting room, where X equals the number of your Burlent characters. Since this activates at the start of the Encore step, any of your reversed characters will not have been sent to the waiting room yet, and they will count towards the top check X. Use this effect to find cards like counters to defend your board into your next turn, or additional Climaxes to go for more combos. In order to fully analyze the Anya level 3, we must also look at the level 0 Confident Anya and level 2 Stella event. The level 0 Anya has 2 on-play abilities. The first lets you dig up to 3 cards for an event to add to hand, and if you add one, you discard a card. This effect is excellent in the early game for milling through the deck and getting copies of Hospital Staff Fiona into the waiting room so that you can change into them at level 1. Her second ability discards a Burlant character for cost to search the deck for the Stella obtained event. This event lets you sacrifice Confident Anya to play any Anya from your waiting room, which will more often than not be our level 3 combo. Our goal is to use the event to summon the level 3 Anya while still at level 2, and then loop between the 2 level 3 Anyas via their change effects to repeatedly gain value. Now let's take a look at the rest of the deck. Our main goals at level 0 are to gather copies of the Nightfall Fiona combo and Anya Brainstorm, and get copies of Hospital Staff Fiona into your waiting room to use for change. The next level 0 on our list, the Yor Ricky, is an excellent card for adding Nightfall Fiona to our hand to use at level 1. Additionally, she reveals the top card of the deck on play and gains 2000 power for the turn if it's a Burlant character, allowing her to be a very serviceable 3500 attacker. The next couple cards in our list serve double duty as both a way to buff the board, as well as offering a method to add Nightfall Fionas to hand and dump Hospital Fionas into the waiting room. The Bond level 0 gives all copies of the Anya Brainstorm Global 500 power as an ability, making him a decent substitute back row in case you don't have 2 copies of the Anya Brainstorm there already. His second effect is an act ability. Pay 1 and sack himself to top check 4 and add a level 1 or higher card from among them to your hand and then send the rest to waiting room. The Lloyd PR Brainstorm lets you give one of your characters 1k power at the start of your Climax phase, and has a spammable Brainstorm effect that lets you search your deck for a Burlant character and discard a card for each Climax you hit. This is great for cherry-picking Nightfall Fionas from your deck, while simultaneously offering a way to get Hospital Fiona out of your hand. Notably, both of these cards can be used in the front row as attackers if needed, while still giving full benefit. While I mentioned earlier that Bond is a decent substitute back row for a second Anya, he's pretty great when put in the front line alongside 2 Fionas if you weren't able to field a third. Since Bond gives all copies of your Anya Brainstorms the 500 global effect, rather than being a global support himself, having double Brainstorm in the back row will result in a net plus 1k to all of your characters, and will also result in Hospital Fionas being an even bigger 9500 power on defense, assuming Bond also survives into the opponent's turn, of course. Next up are 3 copies of this level 0 Lloyd. On play, you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a Burlant character, add it to hand and discard a card. This mainly serves as a way to get Hospital Fiona into the waiting room, since the add itself will be a random card off the top. However, his second ability, commonly referred to as the Helmet effect, lets you discard a card and sacrifice himself to grab any Burlant character from your waiting room, which can both discard Hospital Fiona and salvage Nightfall Fiona in one swift motion. We run 3 copies of this card in the deck since he's one of our best consistent ways to discard Hospital Fionas out of our hand. Up next are a few more one-ofs. Having a Climax swapper in your list is basically a given, as it lets you swap to the correct Climax when needed. For a deck that wants to continuously loop either its Fiona or Anya Climax combo over multiple consecutive turns, this is a fantastic card to have on hand at all stages of the game. Next move, Twilight, is more of a fun pick. His ability mills 2 cards on play, and if there was a Climax among those 2 cards, you get to look at up to 4 cards from the top of your deck, add a Burlant character from among them to your hand, and send the rest to waiting room. It's kind of like a free Brainstorm 2 in a way. Use this extra mill to try to get more copies of Hospital Fiona into your waiting room, and maybe pick up a free card as well while you're at it. Finally, for the level 0s, we have this Lloyd and Anya. This card can dig up to 3 cards from the top of the deck on play, which can be very helpful for finding a Climax if you don't already have one. Additionally, the cards you don't add to your hand will go to your waiting room, which I probably don't need to tell you at this point, is very helpful towards fulfilling one of the deck's main goals. This card also gets +1 soul on a direct attack, which is a bit random, but can sometimes help you push extra damage if the situation calls for it. There's actually only one level 1 card that we haven't looked at already, since the first 2 are just our Fionas. The Yor backup is pretty ordinary on its own. She's a 2k backup that can refund 1 stock from the top of your deck when it's used. Normally, this stock is blind, and you won't know what the card is. But Yor has insane synergy with our Fionas, since they give us information about the top cards of our deck. Use this to save a Fiona from danger while simultaneously removing clean damage from the top of the deck and getting closer to your next cancel. The soul trigger on this Yor also allows her to be grabbed from a choice Climax, giving you easier access to the card to defend your board. At level 2, we run 2 copies of this Becky. This has a similar supportive ability to the level 0 Bond in that it gives a global support ability to our Anya Brainstorms rather than having a support ability herself. Specifically, she gives all Anya Brainstorms global 1500 power, which more than doubles the amount of power that an Anya would have given already. However, we're not done just yet, as that is only one of Becky's 3 abilities. As an act ability, you can rest her and discard another copy of herself to search your deck for any Burlent character, which is amazing considering we usually only want one Becky on stage at a time anyways. If the card you want is in your deck, normally you wouldn't be able to use Anya's Salvage Brainstorm to grab it. However, if your second copy of Becky is in your waiting room, you can grab that instead and then use Becky's ability to search your deck. Becky's final ability is actually a small bit of finishing power. By discarding 2 cards at the start of your Climax phase, you can burn 1. This is especially helpful in builds of Spy Family that run the Anya finisher, because she doesn't actually deal any additional damage. She just removes Climaxes from the top of the opponent's deck. Overall, Becky is an extremely helpful card that offers plenty of utility. Our other level 2 character, and the final card of the deck we haven't looked at yet, is the Anya Backup. In addition to her 2500 power backup, she has a standard anti-change counter ability, pay 2 extra stock, and sacrifice a character on your stage to send an opponent's overleveled character to their waiting room. Despite Spy Family having a very board-based game plan that likes to keep as many cards on board as possible, sometimes the reward of stopping one of your opponent's characters can be worth the sacrifice of resources, and just having this card available as a preventative measure can disincentivize your opponent from going through with their intended game plan. Now for our game plan. As mentioned earlier, our main goals are to establish 2 copies of Anya Brainstorm in our back row, alongside as many Fiona combos as possible, ideally changing all of them into hospital staff Fionas as well. This allows us to set up an extremely solid defensive lineup that will not only retain board extremely well in most matchups, but also let us control our damage and draws to really take control of all aspects of the game. Recommended cards to keep in the mulligan are the aforementioned Fiona combo and Anya Brainstorm, as well as helpful profiles to find our missing pieces, such as the Yor Ricky and Lloyd Helmet. While Confident Anya isn't needed as a sacrifice for the event until we get to level 2, she's still very helpful in the early game for her ability to mill through the deck and get Hospital Staff Fiona into the waiting room. Going into level 1, you should be looking to level blue for our Fiona combo. The level 1 game plan has been made pretty clear at this point. Loop between your Fionas to gain value and knowledge, using the Yor backup to protect them when applicable. Going to level 2, you will want to level yellow for our upcoming Anya game plan. Ideally, you will refresh by the time you hit level 2, making it very easy for Confident Anya to pull Stella from your deck. You can discard the level 3 Anya as cost for this effect, putting her exactly where she needs to be in order to use the event to summon her out. Ideally, you're also able to develop a Becky at this point, replacing one of your 2 Anya Brainstorms in the back row. When you're replacing one of the Anyas in the back row, it is highly recommended that you move the second one to the front row and side attack with it, rather than just getting rid of it altogether, so that way you can maintain the power boosts on your other 2 lanes, since they apply no matter where the Anya is on your stage. From here, you just want to loop between the Anya combo and top check X Anya to get constant value, healing, and climax combos, and eventually close out the game, maybe with a little help from Becky's Burn 1. When you eventually go to level 3, you'll want to level green in case you need it to hard play the top check X Anya from your hand. We've made the deck's strengths very apparent throughout the entire video, but let's take a look at some of the deck's weaknesses. First off, its level 0 game is fairly weak. Yor Ricky is our best attacker at level 0, being the only card that can swing higher than 2500. But even then, she requires a top check, and isn't a suitable card to be playing on turn 1, since it means that we can't use her Ricky ability. Against bigger level 0s, you will have to give your opponent some free advantage a lot of the time. Second, while the Fiona level 1 game is very high power and can be tough to beat the conventional way, they are still very susceptible to removal abilities. Decks such as 7 Deadly Sins with their level 0 Escanor can do a lot of damage to the Fiona setup, making it very hard to snowball a lead into the mid and late game. With the recent announcement of Love Live School Idol Festival 2 Miracle Live making an upcoming appearance in English, we've also discussed the possibility of Chica level 1 combo being a strong counter to Fiona since she's a level 1 reverser. Third, the deck can simply brick. The level 1 game has a lot more moving pieces than your average deck, and assembling everything to create your perfect level 1 board isn't going to happen every single game. Some games, all your Nightfall Fionas will be on the bottom half of your deck with no way to grab them, or all your Hospital Fionas will be on the bottom half of your deck instead and you have no change targets. Maybe you just won't draw any of your Anya Brainstorms to support your board. There are a number of things that can go wrong and will go wrong at some point. Before we finish up, let's take a look at a couple alternative ways to play the Fiona shell. First up, we have the version that runs the Lloyd finisher, running an 8 Pants Climax lineup instead of 4 Pants 4 choice. There are a few cards we'll want to look at in this version, but let's start with Lloyd himself. Lloyd has Climax combo with Pants, on attack, pay 2, burn 3, and if that burn 3 is cancelled, burn 1. This gives the deck some actual damage ceiling compared to the Anya endgame, which can represent, at best, 10 damage with triple Anya and 1 Becky, assuming you're doing triple front attacks. Triple Lloyd instead represents 18 damage. He changes into a healer, but this isn't as important compared to the Anya top end because we're mainly just going for the kill at level 3, rather than early playing Lloyd and trying to change and sustain throughout the level 2 game. This Your level 0 can be run as a complement to the Lloyd level 3 game to make triple a bit easier to manage. Normally, it would require 10 starting stock for triple Lloyd, but this Your brings it down to 8. In the Lloyd version of the deck, you will typically see Bond 2-1 run instead of Becky. Bond adds the same 1500 global effect to your Anya Brainstorms, but has a different secondary ability. By resting himself, you look at the top card of your opponent's deck, and can send it to Waiting Room if you so choose. This can snipe a Climax off of the top of the opponent's deck if they're unlucky. Finally, we have the level 0 Sylvia, one of the strongest cards in all of Spy Family. This card has both on play and on death, discard a Pants Climax to top check 5, add a character to your hand, and send the rest to Waiting Room. This is extremely helpful for digging through your deck to find all your pieces, whether adding them to your hand or throwing them into your Waiting Room. As if that wasn't enough, Sylvia's other effect is on attack you can pay 1 or clock the top card of your deck in order to Twin Drive. This allows her to generate extra stock at the cost of taking 1 damage, or you can pay key cards out of your stock on the fly, most notably Climaxes or copies of your Hospital Fiona so they don't get stuck in stock and you can change into them. Sylvia is one of the main reasons to play 8 Pants over Pants Choice, so definitely give this version some consideration as well. And now for another way to play the Fiona shell, we have Mike's preferred version of Anya Top End. Because Sylvia is such an insanely strong card, Mike runs 4 copies of her alongside additional Pants Climaxes to make sure she's online. However, by adding Sylvia's to the deck, he dropped the Anya level 0 as well as the 2-1 event to early play Anya level 3, instead opting to just play the Anyas at level 3 as a normal finisher. For his level 2 game, he instead uses the full family green RR, which can serve as a double healer off just a single copy, making it a very powerful mid-game piece. Feel free to try out all of these different versions and let us know what you think of them. And that's going to wrap up our deck profile on Spy Family. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and as always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Be sure to stay tuned for our upcoming gameplay block for Spy Family, especially our next game that will feature Fiona Anya versus Fiona Lloyd 8 Pants. Until then, this has been Randall aka Shizakats on the Tressa's Collectibles channel. See ya!